Welcome to this episode of Raising Karen. Podcast motivates by an educator about raising kids with special needs.
Today, guys, I'm talking with Wesley Page, that has been an occupational therapist now for 17 years. He's a graduate of the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, in the Occupational Therapy program. For the last 13 years, Wes actually is an occupational therapist that works at Shrine School in Memphis, which is a school specifically designed for moderate to severe physically challenged children. Wes, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Wes, I think you have such a unique perspective of actually being a therapist with yourself having being an adult with cerebral palsy. Tell me more about that and whether that has been a motivation, sir, for you becoming an occupational therapist.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, I have cerebral palsy, and I actually have spastic diplegia, which means my lower extremities are affected, and then there are properties of cerebral palsy in my upper extremities as well, but it's very, very mild. So really, the only affected extremity is going to be my lower extremity. But yes, as far as for determining my kind of career path in life, having cerebral palsy definitely affected my career choice. Of course, just as being a patient with cerebral palsy, I was always kind of just interested in knowing more about my diagnosis and just trying to determine more, learn more of what I could do to kind of to kind of help my situation and to make myself more stronger and more capable. I actually end up choosing occupational therapy because, of course, when I was a child, I needed speech therapy and physical therapy.
Right.
But I never actually qualified for occupational therapy, and I would get assessed, but never qualified for the services. So I kind of figured that I would kind of take that route because then I would still be within the realms of the rehab process, but then I could actually work in an area where, if I had to just imitate movements, then that would be something that I would be able to do successfully. And of course it was, of course in my field as occupational therapist, I can still deal with the patients that have a similar diagnosis to me. And I can still kind of make a difference and give back to the community of that disability.
Wes, what were you as like a little boy? I'm very curious about that.
Okay, well, as a young child, I was pretty active, or relatively speaking, I was active. I didn't actually get diagnosed with cerebral palsy until I was about 4 years old. When I was infant and going into toddler years, I did meet all my developmental milestones. But what happened is when I would ambulate, I would walk on my toes a lot, and I would fall a lot, and then that never kind of was a circumstance that never fixed itself. So our parents started taking me to doctors and kind of seeking the just an answer for what was going on. And then eventually, as I said, around 4 years old, I got diagnosis of cerebral palsy, and from that point on, I continued to walk with what's can be referred to as kind of an extensor pattern or spasticity. Of course, walking on my toes, but I didn't walk with any. I didn't need any assistance or aids to walk.
Okay.
I was able to walk independently, and of course, I would fall from time to time. But I was able to do things like participate in activities with my friends, and I could run and play with them. And of course, I wasn't a fast runner at all, but was able to kind of participate in some of the activities. And then and basically, it wasn't until when I was 13 years old, I went for a procedure, and then and after the procedure, I was never really able to get that original confidence back by walking. So from that point on, I actually walked with a cane and just kind of lived the rest of my life, walking with a cane for support.
May I kindly ask, so what procedure was it, sir, that you had when you were 13 years old? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's what's called a selective dorsal rhizotomy.
Okay.
And that's a procedure in which they kind of, neurologists will go through and kind of identify the muscles that are the most spastic or have the highest tone, and then kind of cut the nerves that lead to those muscles. So I can have more fluid freedom of movement with my extremities. Yes. So and of course that was actually at that time it was considered a very, very major, very complicated surgery, and I guess even today it would still be considered to be that. But unfortunately, I just didn't quite get the strength back that was anticipated for after that procedure.
I understand, Wes. Wes, was that like was that done as a multi-level surgery that involved multiple spinal access points, or was it like a single laminectomy?
Yeah, well, I actually had this surgery in the 90s.
Okay.
And it was over my entire lumbar spine,
Okay.
which is the lower part of your spinal column. So I think today they don't make an incision that's quite that long,
Right.
but at that time that was the kind of the standard procedure for that. So
Yes, sir.
so yeah, even today, of course, I still have the scar from that surgery, and it's I would say about 6 inches long.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and talk now about your early years. I'm curious about your family and your hometown. Did you grow up in Memphis?
Yeah, so I grew up in Memphis, and actually the school I went to was actually a private school,
Okay.
and I went to this private school from the age of, or from the grades of kindergarten until I graduated. So it actually had all 12 grades at this school. But private school was not the original choice for my, that my parents had made. Unfortunately, at that time, and I grew up I was my elementary years was in the 80s. So at that time, there were when I was taken to enroll into the public school system, the schools decided that they were going to put me in a program with other people with disabilities, but the other kids were not at my cognitive level. Unfortunately, they were a little bit more involved, especially with the mental cognitive side.
Yes.
So, and so my parents, they fought to get me into a regular program because, they felt that, well, while I had issues with walking, I could still use my mind and hopefully, really escalate and escalate in life and really become somebody, that's able to use his intellect to the highest ability. But unfortunately at that time, and in the 80s, we did not have all the ADA laws or the IDA laws that we have today. So the person that was over determining what program I would be in decided that, that they were going to stick with their plan. So unfortunately, the only other option that my parents had was to put me into private school, which they did choose to do. And once I kind of got into private school, it just ended up being that I just stayed there throughout the course of my of grade school. So and then but it worked out great. I really liked my private school that I went to, and it's actually funny the way that the private school that I went to was chosen is because it actually had an elevator in it, and it actually had a lot of other access points that were easy, like the curb cuts in the side of the at the end of the sidewalks. So that became my school. Of course, back then things were people, some of the building codes and everything were not what they are today. So at that time, that was something that my parents really had to take into consideration. And then I ended up in a school that I love. And it was actually funny. The irony is even though I went to that school because it had an elevator, I actually never
used it.
Never used it. Was able to learn to use the stairs pretty well, and didn't have a problem going up and down them at all. It would just take me a little bit longer, but longer than the other students, but it wasn't a problem.
Wes, were you in a mainstream class? How did that work in the private school?
Yes, so I was in the mainstream regular classes in the private school, and that was something that they were able to work out and kind of just that was a situation that they were able to work with my parents on and me to be a part of a regular classroom with children of normal cognitive abilities. And it was, and anyway, that was being really beneficial for me. All my peers were very helpful, and it ended up just being a very good circumstance. The school was not very big. Well, and by big, I guess it's all relative to how big, whomever is listening thinks a school should be. But here in the Memphis area, that private school I ended up graduating with 130 kids. And I think, of course, there were several classes in every grade, but there was probably about 100 kids in my grade throughout the entire time that I was there. So, and I think that's actually, compared to some of the public schools in Memphis, that was actually considered a very small school. But yes.
So that was from your recount, that was a very positive experience being at that school, where you got a lot of support from the school itself, as well as the teachers, and as far as the students, as far as things like bullying or any unpleasantness in that social structure.
Throughout my life, there's definitely been some bullying and situations that just are, unpleasant, I suppose. I would say it wasn't that bad at the school that I went to, but, of course, kids will be kids, and that's not to justify any bullying at all, but it definitely, it did happen, but it wasn't to it wasn't to a level that was beyond, my regulation.
Okay.
And, I those were things that were able to get rectified, and the staff, they did a good job to, when they knew about a bullying situation, they would, take care of that problem, and, they would let the other students know that school was not a school that would allow bullying, and that it was a school that was, aiming to be inclusive and to, and to show kindness to other people.
Yes, sir.
So it definitely, so things worked out well for me in that regards. Yeah.
Hi guys, we're going to take just a short break. When we come back, Wes is going to talk about his high school years, transitioning to the University of Chattanooga to the OT program, as well as his present-day job at Shrine School here in Memphis, Tennessee. As a personal appeal, guys, go ahead and give us a like and share this podcast with other friends. I sincerely appreciate you tuning in and listening to our podcast. And without further ado, here is Wes Page.
Did you receive your therapy services at the school, or how did it work back in the 90s? Did you go for outpatient therapy? How was that handled?
Okay, well, at that time, that school that I went to, it did not have physical therapy services, so I had to get outpatient physical therapy services through, my parents' insurance plan, and for that I would just, go to a therapist after school. But they did have speech therapy services, and at that time in my life, my speech was not good at all. But worked with a speech therapist for several years, and it made a world of difference in my life. I think I took speech therapy up until I was about maybe in the third or fourth grade,
Okay.
and then I at that point I was discharged, and just sometimes I try to, even today, try to just really focus on my speech and try to be, I guess, speak in a manner that everybody can understand me to the best of my ability. But with physical therapy, of course, like I said, it wasn't available. Neither was occupational therapy at that school, and they were. The school was helpful in regards to, like, I was able to get my outpatient therapist to come to the school, for a couple visits, mostly because that therapist was wanting to see how the environment that I was in, and see what kind of modifications they could make, and to make things more accessible for me. And the school was very open and compliant with that therapist. They gave me the opportunity to have like 2 sets of books, because sometimes the books, they would get kind of heavy to carry in my backpack. So I would have a set at home, and then I could have a set of a book in each class that I went to, and that was helpful. So yeah, the school was very, very kind in that regard, and very, very accommodating in that regard.
Wes, as far as your fine motor and navigating, like writing, how did that happen, sir? Now, and especially transferring over now to Chattanooga, being in the occupational therapy program, where, especially in your first 2 years, your prerequisites, there's so much of note taking and handwriting. How did that work?
For the most part, I didn't have too much of a problem with keeping up with the lectures. I did write a little bit slower than some of the other children. When I went to college, it wasn't really too much of a problem either. Most colleges, they have like an office for disabled services, and which of course Chattanooga had as well. And then so I did, just go there to kind of see what they offer, and they did have a note-taking service. I tried it out, and it just wasn't for me at all. So, it was, I guess, some of the classes, it might have been it was a little bit of a struggle to try to keep up, as far as like just to write as fast as maybe the teacher's talking, but it wasn't so significant that I chose to use any of the services. The other option I did of course do was in occupational therapy school, when of course things got a little bit, information was coming at me a little bit quicker in that program. So of course I would just tape the lectures with a voice recorder, and then of course I would actually just go back home and re-listen to the lecture, and then fill in all the notes. If I miss notes, I could kind of fill it in based on what I had on the voice recording. So for some of the tougher classes, I ended up just listening to each lecture twice. But it was kind of worth it, because it ended up kind of reinforcing what the professor was teaching.
Wes, what are your techniques like for energy conservation right now? how do you manage your energy expenditure so that you have enough to last through the day?
That that's actually an interesting question. Mostly, I just kind of go for it. Like if I feel like it's gonna be a situation that I might get tired, then I may take a snack, you know, or something like that, just to kind of re-energize me um, when I need it. But otherwise, I guess I just kind of go into the situation and just put all my energy and effort into everything I do. Of course, if it's a lot of walking, basically I'll just have to, kind of be strategic on when I can take a break. If if I see that there's an opportunity to kind of sit down and rest, then I'll take that opportunity to catch my breath, even if I don't really need to take a moment. I will kind of take a moment just to go ahead and take that, advantage of this situation. But I guess other than that, it's just mostly trying to be strategic, with where I'm going. I guess if I can offer a better example, it would be that maybe if I'm walking through a mall and then if I'm I know I kind of know the size of it, and I know I might not be able to make it through the entire mall. Well, if I see maybe a little park bench, or if there's a water fountain and a little space to sit around it, I'll go in and sit down, take a second, just and then maybe rest there for about 5 minutes, and then continue my way through the mall. And then, of course, after as I go through the mall, or every time I see a bench, or I'll take a rest. So it's like I'm basically just very aware of my environment, and kind of know when and where opportunities will come around for me to take a break.
Wes, I've got to give a shout out to the therapists and teachers and the students of Shrine School. I got to visit you guys earlier in this year, and I tell you what, it was amazing to see how all those services came together in order to help the students succeed and to learn. How did you get to your job at Shrine School? How did that happen?
Kind of wanted to make a transition into a different job, and I knew that the Shrine School existed. And actually, I had previously done some PRN work with that same school system. And for those that don't know, PRN work is just as needed work, is basically what it means. And in years before, I had done some therapy work with the school system. So I decided to, see it. And then I noticed that a position was available. And when I got the job, I specifically asked that, that I be placed at the Shrine School, because they dealt a little bit more with the students and the children that I felt like I could identify with a little bit more and have more of an impact on. And of course, when I got the job, my boss was able to set up things so that I could go to the Shrine School. which actually helped me out a lot, because a lot of the school-based therapists, they have to go to multiple schools throughout the day, and to be at one school with with my physical limitations, it's very helpful just to have that one location. And that is a situation for Trine School, because since it is a school that's only for disabled children, then there's no reason for me to go to other locations.
Where's right now at the moment, and I know as a mom, what worries me about the future would be in terms of medical needs that would arise. Do you just keep up like with a general practitioner, or do you see a neurologist on an ongoing basis? What would be your advice for parents setting up medical care for their children once they reach the young adult years? Who should they engage with?
Yes, I believe you should definitely establish a relationship with a doctor that you really like, and as well as a therapist too. With cerebral palsy, you're kind of a perpetual patient for those practitioners, and so you really need them in your life. I think that it's very important for parents, and if their child is cognitively able, for that student as well, to create a dialogue with their doctor and their therapist. Like you always want to be able to ask a lot of questions, and your doctor, and when you have questions, your doctor and your therapist, they should and will answer your questions. You need to just be enlightened on as much of what's going on as possible. And I think that's one of the most important things that a parent should remember.
Wes, I believe we covered most of the topics that I was wanting to cover. I'm just going to quickly look back here. I think the only one that we really didn't touch on was from the adult perspective, Wes. Your advice to me as a parent, what would that be in order for me to help my child reach their maximum potential of function? What would your advice be to me now at this moment in time?
Well, I really believe that efforts to establish confidence in your child is very important. It can help so much. Of course, once your child gets out into the world, and you may not be there all the time, they're going to have to be able to handle situations, and hopefully not let it get them down too much. So with that comments, you have to let them know that they are somebody special and that they are loved, and that sometimes people may not always react to them in a way that they would like or would hope that people would react to them, but that regardless, that they need to always keep their head up. Let them know that they always, there is a chance, and that for improvements. So especially in regards to therapy, like to be able to participate in activities or participate in exercises, like just to continue with it and always put forth a good effort. Because sometimes it's easy to get this. It's easy for some people to get discouraged that have disabilities. So you really want to foster that confidence and that drive. It's actually easier to do when they're younger, because the younger when you have young children, of course, a lot of times they get the reaction of adoration and that people say that, oh, this child is cute, and give them the affection that they need that way. But as you grow older, you may not always. You'll see that sometimes the response starts to change in that child's life, and so you really want to just have them. Like I said, it's all about confidence. You have to make sure that they are as strong mentally as they can possibly be, and that'll take them the farthest.
Wow, Wes, I think you've ended off that on an awesome note. Self-confidence and self-esteem. That's what it boils down to, is having that mindset, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Wes, thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience and perspective with us. You have been an invaluable resource. And guys, as always, you can listen to the podcast. And for more information, please look at the Raising Killen blog, which will have a write-up on Wesley page as well. And we usually end off with, as always, remember, guys, get to the top of your mountain. This is Marsh Naidu signing off.